I'm going to walk you through everything we currently know about Star Wars Jedi Survivor, including gameplay mechanics, interviews, and articles all shared by the Respawn team over the last 12 months, including all the new info that's come out over the last 2 days. Now, as this is a big boy video, it's important to me not to waste your time, so I've included timestamps down below just in case you want to come back to it or skip forward to a topic that you're most interested in. But what I would say is that if you end up watching the whole video, you'll be fully up to speed when Jedi Survivor releases, and that's a great place to start actually, because it will be releasing on next-gen consoles on April 28th. So that will be only on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S, and of course the PC Master Race, which you can purchase from all of the major retailers. Now, the reason why this won't be available on older consoles is because Stig Asmussen, the game director, said in a recent IGN interview that this new game just could not run on last-gen consoles because of the sheer size, graphical fidelity, and the detail that the team is putting into everything, including utilizing those next-gen fast processors and hardware for better loading times, larger maps, and broader enemy variety. So there you are. If you don't have a next-gen console or PC, then you can't play Jedi Survivor, unfortunately. Now, as for minimum requirements and space, we do have the PC specs released by EA on their website, which I will pop up on your screen right now, which does state that you will need 155 gigabytes worth of storage to run this on your computer. And with that said, we don't yet officially know how much space Jedi Survivor is going to be taking up on your console SSDs, but that doesn't mean that we don't have an approximate idea, because if we compare that to Jedi Fallen Order, which is 55 gigabytes on the PC and around 40 gigabytes on consoles, and even though this is on next-gen consoles, that is triple the size in terms of a download footprint for this game. So what I would say is make sure you get yourself squared away in terms of storage before launch, as it will be quite significant. And one final thing I just wanted to mention, as quite a few people asked this question in the previous Survivor video I made, but no, this is not going to be a co-op or multiplayer game. It is a single-player action-adventure game, just like Fallen Order. And speaking of which, if you did enjoy the first game and will 100% be playing Jedi Survivor, then EA have released some pre-order game editions to try and entice you to pull the trigger now, rather than just after the reviews drop, which I think are already out at the time of recording this video. Of course, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money, as I'm not that type of guy when it comes to pre-ordering and MTX stuff, but let's break down each official edition now so you can make up your own mind and you can decide if it's worth it for you. And let's start with the standard edition, which is retailing at £59, $69 and €65 respectively, where you're going to be picking up the base game as well as the Obi-Wan Kenobi inspired Hermit cosmetic outfit with a Hermit lightsaber and combustion blaster set, and I'll be breaking down the new blaster lightsaber combat stances a little later on. Now, this outfit is clearly a homage to Obi-Wan's outfit in his recent TV series, which do include his sand goggles, which is a nice detail, as well as the Hermit lightsaber itself not actually being Obi-Wan's saber from Revenge of the Sith, as you can see here. In fact, it's his lightsaber from the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, which may indeed lean itself to suggest that we may come across Obi-Wan in-game, as he'll have his current Kanan lightsaber equipped rather than his previously crafted one we've just discussed. Now, moving on to the deluxe edition though, and this is where you may recognize some more iconic gear from the series, all intentional by EA of course, and if you do decide this edition is for you, it will set you back £79, $89 and another €89 for my European friends. Now, as well as picking up that Obi-Wan set, you'll also grab this Galactic Hero cosmetic pack, which includes the Scoundrel Han Solo inspired outfit, which he famously wore in A New Hope, as well as the rugged BD-1 robot skin and Han's DL-44 blaster, with no confirmation as of yet whether we will be able to gunsling in the cantinas on Tatooine, but I certainly do hope so. Now, moving on to the Rebel Hero Pack, you'll pick up Luke's famous yellow jacket, which he also wore in A New Hope, as well as the R2 inspired skin for BD-1. Now, as for his lightsaber, there's no secrets or hidden meanings here. It does look like it's his saber from the very same film, and I do wonder if it will turn blue, but we'll just have to wait and see. Well, you'll have to wait and see if you decide this pre-order bonus is for you. Now, as for the collector's edition, we do indeed have one for this game, but it has not been made widely available and can only be purchased through Limited Run, who create premium and bespoke collector's editions for games such as this, if you've never heard of them before. In fact, it's so exclusive exclusive that they're only producing 8,500 units, according to Josh Fairhurst, the CEO of Limited Run, which he announced on Twitter. And as you'd expect, due to its exclusivity, it comes with a substantially hefty price tag, which will cost you $300 if you live in the US, but if you live outside of the States, it's going to set you back an additional $150 just for international shipping. So you're looking at around $450 to $500 if you want this and you live outside the States. So it's a bit spenny, as we say here in the UK, but what do you actually get inside it? Well, you will get a full functional Cal Kestis replica lightsaber hilt with no blade, by the way. It is just the hilt, as the blade is sold separately at the Shop Disney website or any Disney park for $55. So unless you want to pay more, you'll have to make the lightsaber swoosh sounds yourself once this arrives at your doorstep. But it does come with its own magnetic box, which is designed to hold the saber hilt itself securely, and Limited Run are emphasizing its premium nature, with Josh going on to say further that the saber hilt is massive and it weighs a ton. But I'm sure you will be the judge of that yourself if you do decide to make the purchase. But if you do, you will pick up a certificate of authenticity due to its limited production, as well as the official steelbook case and a copy of the digital deluxe edition, including all the cosmetic items we've just gone through. So that's all the game info and pre-order info done and dusted here in this video. But what's the actual premise of this game? Because Jedi Fallen Order came out in 2019 and it may have been a few years since you've played it. So let's all get back up to speed on what's going on in this story, because on EA's website they officially state that Cal is driven to make a stand during the galaxy's darkest times and questions how far he will go to protect himself and his crew in the process, desperately seeking a safe haven far from the reach of the Empire so they can find a place where they can stop running away and focus on rebuilding their lives in peace. In fact, Stig, the game director, confirmed in a Star Wars interview that that's why this game is called Survivor in the first place, because Cal is doing everything he can to remain alive and is having to build relationships and make unsavory connections with people he wouldn't necessarily have made pre-Order 66 to essentially assist in that very survival. Now, because of this, Cal has matured as a Jedi Knight since the previous game, with Stig going on to say further that he's feeling the weight of being one of the last Jedi who is continually being hunted, with his physical appearance showcasing that kind of stress. Now, in terms of timeline within the Star Wars universe, Jedi Survivor takes place in 9 BBY, which is 5 years after the Fallen Order game, as well as 10 years after the Revenge of the Sith and Order 66, to give you some additional context there, which was the summary execution or purge of all Jedi in the galaxy, if you didn't know, which was initiated by Emperor Palpatine, which, if you do remember, we did experience firsthand with Cal in that first game. Now, what is interesting is that there is an official novel that has been released since the first game, which fills some parts of this 5-year time span between Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, where in that book, Cal and the crew assist a stormtrooper deserter who is hoping to start a new life. But while assisting her, they discover a dangerous tool that might help them in the fight against the Empire, which subsequently garners the attention of the 5th brother Inquisitor, who we see in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, by the way, as well as in Rebels, with Kenobi taking place in the same year as Jedi Survivor, adding to my theory that he's going to appear in this game. I hope he does somehow. But I think the crew here have splintered because of what's happened in this book, and they've gone their separate ways due to this 5th Inquisitor, or this mission going sideways, because in the storyline trailer recently released, Cal seems to be reuniting with each crew member after an extended period of time, as well as meeting new ones while he continues to avoid capture by the Inquisitors. But before we do reunite with our crew, it does seem that we're going to be crash landing with the Mantis ship on the planet of Kobo, which is a new planet to Star Wars canon and has been confirmed by the Respawn team to be a central planet of this game, which we're going to be returning to over and over again, and that's going to serve as our base of operations. Stig also confirmed that we will not be losing all of our abilities from the first game, or starting from a kind of clean slate with no force powers or abilities, as many sequel games do, which is very good news, especially as Stig said that we'll be starting with even more from Jedi Fallen Order, as they wanted to demonstrate Cal has been working hard on his abilities since that prequel game. Which brings us on to where we'll be starting Survivor itself, as I reckon we will start this new game by liberating Kobo from the tyrannical rule of the local warlords that oppress the inhabitants of the planet, planet, and in the process get back up to speed with our abilities, understand what's happened within that 5-year gap since JFO, and work hard to repair our ship and reunite with our crew. Now, if you are enjoying the video so far, please do leave a very swift like down below. It genuinely really helps me out a lot on YouTube, so thank you very much. And you may be interested to know that I'm also running a Star Wars Jedi Survivor game giveaway. You just need to be a subscriber of the channel to enter, and I'll pop the link down below in the pinned comments. So very best of luck to you. Now let's go over these new companion features arriving in this sequel, because as Joanna Robb, the narrative technical designer, stated in a recent IGN interview, your companions won't just be standing around in the spaceship to randomly chat to Cal, they'll actually help him out with team-up attacks and will aid Cal during traversals of new planets, which is a really cool new feature to this series in my opinion, because in Fallen Order there was only one specific boss encounter, if I remember correctly, where Cal had assistance from an additional NPC, that being Merrin, who helped him defeat Taron Malachus, the disgraced Jedi Master on the planet of Dathomir. But even then, I would say that she acted as some sort of scripted and occasional special attack rather than a fully fledged companion, comparatively to other single player games with that active companionship included as some sort of game mechanic. So it does seem that one key gameplay change from the development team that will be included in Jedi Survivor is this permanent companion mechanic, where we'll be able to perform combo attacks and proactively initiate them against enemies, because Joanna goes on to give some active examples of this being the case in regard to one of our new storyline allies called Bode Akuna. She says, when you see a good opportunity, you can give Bode the signal to perform an attack, and he'll use his jetpack to ram the enemy with a brutal dropkick, which is what I believe we can see in action here with this teaser clip. She also went on to say that Bode will respond to our own abilities and attacks with a technique of his own. So if we force push an enemy, Bode will then proactively fire a charged shot, which will then detonate the target, causing a large explosion in the vicinity of everyone else, taking out enemies all at once, which I think sounds really encouraging, because you don't want to feel like you're hand-holding your companion in combat throughout the game and constantly instructing them on what to do with a variety of different commands. Incidentally, Joanna said that we don't necessarily tutorial all of these companion behaviors or skills to you in the game, but rather they are designed to give you these emergent moments but almost feel choreographed like you're in the movies. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a sucker for these kind of moments in game. I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla did it well with these type of cinematic executions, but I do hope there's multiple animations in the game to keep it fresh, because in my experience it can become tiresome after the 500th plus time initiating a cinematic execution of finisher in game that then locks the screen, but we'll just have to wait and see. Companion gameplay does sound and look positive to me so far. But what about other companions? Will we be able to specifically choose who we take with us on certain missions or planets? And if we can, who will they be? Well, apart from confirming the mechanical details about Bode, Joanna did not outwardly confirm if there will be other companions who engage with us in combat, but she did confirm that Bode will be the first companion that Cal teams up with. So I'm presumptively taking that as confirmation that there will be more companions to fight with us in combat, because we can actually see Merrin fighting in combat alongside Cal in this very quick teaser clip. But it doesn't stop there for Merrin, thankfully, as she seems to be taking a more prominent role in this second game. Merrin, of course, being a Dathomirian Night Sister that became a close ally of Cal's in the first game after his encounter with her on the planet of Dathomir. Now, if you weren't aware, the Night Sisters were able to call upon ancient arcane magic, which was derived from incantations and spells, who were considered to be considerable force wielders, but who fundamentally wielded different powers compared to other force wielders. And this is highlighted in the recent Jedi Battle Scars book we mentioned earlier, as Merrin states in that book that she struggles with her magic, losing her powers at times, and because of this occurrence, it could be possible that she has asked Cal to teach her how to use traditional, more reliable force powers for her own protection, as we can see her use a force push in the trailer here. So from a gameplay perspective, I would not be surprised at all if we see Merrin firing off force powers and arcane Night Sister magic in combat if we do have her as a companion. But what about Grease? Well, good news there as well, because he's returning in Jedi Survivor, as you can see here, but you may have noticed that he's now got a mechanical arm and some outstanding braided hair. Well, referencing that Battle Scar book once more, Grease actually loses his arm while trying to save Cal in a fight against that notorious fifth brother Inquisitor whilst Cal was unconscious. They of course successfully escaped the skirmish where Grease's arm was cauterized with Bacta, which, if you don't know what that is the near miraculous healing gelatinous substance used throughout the series. And I've got a feeling that after this experience, this is why Grease gifted Cal his Stinger Mantis ship, taking one of the seats from the ships as a memento, as you can see here in this background shot, and has subsequently decided to live a quieter existence as a civilian, as some sort of repairman, perhaps on Coruscant, which is also confirmed as a visitable planet in this game, thanks to the recent trailer, which I'll be talking about more shortly. Now, as Grease and Cal embrace as good friends, it's clear there's no hard feelings about that fight with that 5th Inquisitor, but that's got me thinking, perhaps due to his willingness to get into combat against the Inquisitors, and after a few years break from fighting, we may have him as an optional companion in game with all of his tech-based offensive and defensive gadgets available to us in combat. Now, another companion who will be in this game is Sarah Junda, who has since dedicated herself to the secret restoration of the Jedi Order, and it looks like she's taken on more of a spiritual appearance and presence comparatively to her previous look in Jedi Fallen Order, and I do think that she does look very Jedi Master-esque, I would say. So I can't necessarily see her fighting alongside us with a lightsaber in hand against the rudimentary droids here in game, but rather take on more of a peripheral Jedi Master and Council role in this game as Cal continues to evolve as a Jedi Knight. And speaking of evolving, BD1, Cal's trusty droid companion, will of course be back in the game as a Jedi Knight support, with Stig, the game director, stating that they wanted to place a increased emphasis on Cal's relationship with BD1 in Survivor and continue to demonstrate a special and dynamic duo throughout the story. In fact, we'll be able to use the new BD visor button, as you can see here in the bottom left hand corner of your screen, and when you do press that in game, you'll activate the BD noculars, which allows Cal to identify and mark distant places of interest and creatures in the game by placing beacons on them, so they're easy to navigate to on your map, which is a great addition in my opinion. But before we delve into exploration mechanics, let's go through all the enemies that will be in game for us to defeat, and then go into more detail about some of the main antagonists and big bosses that are fueling this story, because there's going to be a lot more droids in this game comparatively to the prequel, as the production director Kasumi Shishodo stated that the creation of droids gave the team a lot more freedom in regard to what enemies can do mechanically. And let's take the B1 battle droids as an example of what she means, as they have their regular blasters equipped as well as the option of a double-bladed axe, which means they won't just be missing every shot they fire at range, but will offer us a variety of close quarters pressure when in a platoon together. That said, they are cannon fodder and they will perish with a single lightsaber swing, which is the perfect enemy to start the game with, as we see them frequently throughout Kobo, the starting planet of the game. And the reason behind this may be because these droids were decommissioned and outlawed by the Galactic Empire after the Clone Wars, so these droids were a bit of a rare sight at the time when Survivor takes place in 9 BBY, but some were used as generic enforcement for warlords and bounty hunters, which seems to be terrorizing Kobo when we crash land there, so their presence does make sense. Now, a droid upgrade from the B1 battle droids are the B2s, who are widely considered to be the big boy bruisers of this line of machinery, which are of course more durable with a few more tricks in their arsenal, such as the homing rocket for one, which does significant damage from distance, as well as the general high damage dealing blasters on their forearms. But the best way to counter this droid will be to time the melee parries correctly, reflect the blaster shots with our saber, and force pull their homing rockets back into them to kind of negate them as a threat. Now, our next robot adversary will be a little bit more agile, which are the BX droids, which I'm very much looking forward to going against actually, as they throw down an elaborate spinning maneuver with their vibro swords that allow them to parry a lightsaber and causes a little bit of a hassle close quarters. And we have actually seen these droids before in the Clone Wars, specifically when Commander Cody comments on the durability of the droids themselves. Listen to this.
Those clankers have tough armor!
Which does make sense why the Respawn team have stated that they were the perfect droid for a mid-level challenge due to their all-round offensive and defensive capabilities. And speaking of defensive capabilities, even if you're not a crazy Star Wars fan, you may recognize these next droids. They are called Droidicas, and they feature in the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith films, which are quite memorable because of their iconic rolling movement and bubble shields that have been confirmed to be included in this game, which has me super hyped, especially as we haven't had a visual presentation of them yet, but the design director Jason DeHarris did tell IGN that they will behave just like you'd expect them to behave from the films and will offer us a significant challenge in the game, which is excellent to hear. Now, more good news, because we'll also be able to go toe-to-toe with the IG-100 Magna Guard droids, with Jason describing these enemies as a superior elite type of enemy that can be offensive, defensive, and counter you with unpredictable rhythms, so each encounter is quite different from the last. We've actually seen these elite units in action in the Clone Wars, as they were a favourite of General Grievous as a bodyguard-based role, and could even continue fighting after losing multiple limbs or even their heads, so very much looking forward to going up against these in-game as well. And while we're on the topic of droids continuing to fight after losing primetime bits of their hardware, that is no problem as well for the DT series Sentry droid from Rebels and the Bad Batch TV show, who are well known for their brute heavy armor and firepower. And the team aren't making it easy for us here, because there will be 3 different varieties of DT droids, with each one operating with a different loadout. The first one running with an electro staff and a missile system, with the second running with a large melee hammer, and a third with a selection of offensive blasters. And as you can see here from the footage, even if you take its legs with your saber, it'll still come at you or actively defend itself, with the AI seemingly being really responsive and reactive to its new predicament here, which I really love to see. I think it's going to be quite immersive just because of that. Now, they're also predominantly stationed aboard Imperial starships and Star Destroyers, and looking at the background of this footage here as well, that does seem to be encouraging as a place that we may visit. Now, I did say that the Respawn team were adding lots of droids to this game, because we also have the KX security droid Enforcer, which reprises its role from JFO, but this time, instead of being a predominantly melee-based enemy where it picks you up, chokes you, and then smashes you into the ground, Jason DeHarris, the design director, said that they wanted to change this droid up a bit and make it a bit of a brawler that could block, counter, and stun you with its baton. Now, they were used as solid training droids for scout troopers and were infamous for their participation during the Great Purge of Mandalore, where they shot survivors after bombing runs from the Empire. But while we're on the topic of scout troopers, they will of course be featuring in this game as well, but they are designed to last a little longer in combat this time, as they now have a shield, with the optimum way to deal with them being to force pull the shield off them and then finish them off with an elegant saber swing. We also have our standard stormtroopers to contend with, of course, in this game, but there's a little bit of a switch up with them in this sequel, as some of the Imperial stormtroopers will have the jetpack capability. Now, Fallen Order did have a few flying enemy types in the forms of animals and humanoid bounty hunters for us to defeat, but I don't recall the Empire having any units in its repertoire that had any sort of flying capability in direct combat against us, so it will be fun to have these elite squadron units added to the mix. But on top of these jetpacking stormtroopers, we'll have to contend with flame troopers and heavy gunners, where we can actually force pull these units towards us and then use their weapons against them in combat, specifically against their own platoon, which is another change up from Fallen Order, as in that game we were able to pull enemy units towards us and kind of use them as a meat shield until we finish them off with an execution maneuver, but this time around we can use the force to activate their own weaponry, which is very welcome. And I'll tell you what else is welcome, and that's visual dismemberment, which sounds actually a little bit sadistic when I say it out loud, but this has been added to the game against humanoids, which is a very big positive in my book, as it adds to that Jedi realism and immersion. Now, before we go through all the big bosses in the game, Cal is of course still being hunted by the Empire, which means we have the Purge troopers on our tail again, who do reprise their role from the first game, and when in combat, a good tip to note about them is their whole body will glow red when they initiate an unblockable attack, so do keep that in mind when you go toe to toe. Now, we do have a lot of variety in terms of enemies in this game, not even including all the various different aggressive wildlife that we will come across on each planet, but let's go through some of the main antagonists in this game that will be driving this story onwards. And let's start with the Inquisitors first, because you may remember the ninth sister from Fallen Order, who Cal defeated and who then subsequently disappeared after that encounter on Kashyyyk. But very interestingly, if you pause the frame at just 24 seconds into the new story trailer, we can get a pretty convincing shot of what looks to be that ninth sister across the platform from Cal, and perhaps she's here determined to get revenge for her defeat and kill Cal on behalf of the Empire. But let's talk about this mysterious, what seems to be High Republic Jedi that we were teased with late last year, who was floating dormant in a Bacta tank, which, if you didn't know what that is a cylindrical tank where one could be submerged for prolonged periods of time to heal. Now, the reason reason why I say High Republic Jedi is because on the front of his robes he has the High Republic crest or insignia accompanied with a lightsaber. He also says the following to Cal.
How could you let the galaxy fall to this unworthy machine of an empire?
Now this suggests that he is absolutely opposed to the Empire's rule, but what's a bit bamboozling is he is highly confrontational towards Cal, who is a fellow Jedi and presumably has released him from this Bacta tank, but he does go on to say another interesting quote in the announcement trailer late last year, so listen to this.
The order is gone. I was betrayed by the one I trusted most.
Now this could lean itself towards the rationale that perhaps this Jedi was deemed far too radical in his views and methods of fighting and defeating enemies within the High Republic era, which was considered a golden age for Jedi, who could arguably be considered on a similar level to Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, with Jedi being significantly more active in the Outer Rim. They were more diverse, accepting, noble, and true guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. So perhaps in this hopeful and optimistic time period with the Galactic Republic at its absolute height, this Jedi was arrested and defeated in a duel, hence the loss of his arm, as you can see here, and then subsequently imprisoned in this Bacta tank indefinitely by the Jedi Order, or even by his master directly due to his betrayal comment. And this was all because of his unconventional and forthright actions that he believed were for the good of the Jedi, but were in fact against their code in the High Republic era. And this leads me to believe that by utilizing this mysterious device which Cal can be seen holding in the recent gameplay footage to open up a Jedi meditation chamber, this is how he enters and discovers this High Republic Jedi in the Bacta tank, subsequently releasing him from his status on the pretense that this Jedi could help Cal in his modern day fight against the Empire, only coming to realize that the reason this Jedi Order fell from grace was because of Jedi like Cal, who he considers weak and therefore has no use for. In fact, in this teaser scene, when he's managed to obtain that High Republic device, presumably off Cal, he can be heard saying this.
The Jedi is a threat.
Not now that we have this.
So whatever is in these Jedi chambers, which I'll discuss in more detail shortly, only seems to be accessible by activating this High Republic holocron styled key that has the potential to thwart this High Republic's Jedi's plans. Now, as for his actual identity, he could be of the Cage race due to his striking eyes and pale skin, which they were known for on their home planet of Quartzite. Or if we're heading down the non-canonical route, in Star Wars Legends, there is a dude called Set Hearth, who is an active Dark Jedi during the Galactic Republic, who not only resembles this guy from the illustrations we have available, but he is specifically called a survivor in the Darth Bane Dynasty of Evil novel, where he doesn't care about Jedi versus Sith, but only wanted to live a long, prosperous life and learn the secrets of essence transfer, which transfers consciousness to another being to subsequently cheat death. But what else is interesting about this guy is that he is clearly working with Commander Rayvis, who is a Gendai, that is a species of humanoids that first appeared in the Legends comic, The Face of the New War, which was only recently made canon a couple months ago. So perhaps they're going the same route with Jedi Set Hearth here, which is worth consideration due to their similarities that we've been shown so far. Either way, theories aside for a second, this Gendai will be extremely hard to defeat, as his species can easily survive significant physical injuries and even dismemberment, because their bodies are formless jumbles of corded muscle and nerve endings which very easily regenerate very quickly, meaning a lightsaber won't kill him. So we're going to have to think of something creative to defeat this commander, or perhaps we won't, because cinematic director Dori Arazi stated in an IGN article that a warrior knows a warrior, and even though they're very different in stature, there's a mutual respect for that strength, and he was speaking about Rayvis and Cal's relationship. So perhaps there is a deeper story with this Gendai in the game instead of just a 25-minute tentacle boss fight. Now, I do want to briefly mention some bounty hunter type enemies in this game that have been teased so far but not expanded upon in great detail, as I feel that these Mandalorian styled opponents could be those secondary antagonists that we'll come up against in the game to mix it up a bit with some fun and challenging mini boss fights. And I want to bring your attention to this dude in the recent trailer specifically, as he seems to be wielding a orange crossguard lightsaber whose armor in fact could be inspired by the original Luke Skywalker concept by Ralph McQuarrie. Now, this enemy definitely isn't an Inquisitor, and perhaps he isn't even a Force user, but Cad Bane during the Clone Wars wielded a lightsaber, so it's not unusual to see that happen in Star Wars canon, and perhaps after we defeat this enemy, that's how we pick up this High Republic cross lightsaber, which we then dismantle and rebuild ourselves, which is where this shot from the trailer comes into play. Now, speaking of the trailer and lightsabers, this Padawan is in possession of Cal's lightsaber for reasons that we are yet to understand. Now, he is presumably on the planet of Coruscant due to his surroundings, which was known as the Imperial Center during the rule of the Galactic Empire, and that's the reason why we can see this Stinger Mantis ship arriving at Coruscant in the recent story trailer, as perhaps Cal is arriving to reclaim his lightsaber, which is a nice segue onto exploration and planets. And while we're on the topic of Coruscant, one of the reasons why I'm really excited about exploring this planet in more detail is that the Jedi Order also had its capital center here, so I would be really keen to know if in the process of trying to reclaim our lightsaber from this Imperial Senator, we also venture into the Temple for relics or knowledge to assist Cal in his survival, as arguably Coruscant, being the capital for galaxy politics, is perhaps the most dangerous place Cal could visit in the entire galaxy, and if it isn't for relics or his lightsaber, then it must be for someone very important. Incidentally, at some point in the past, LucasArts was developing the Star Wars game called 1313, which was set on Coruscant's dark and grittier lower city levels. They even had gameplay footage of the concept, and sadly that game was cancelled, but that's not to say that perhaps Respawn haven't taken some inspiration from this project, and I do hope so, because it did look great. Now, as for other planets, if you played the first installment, you may remember that Fallen Order had 7 in total for us to explore, 3 of which were already established in the Star Wars universe and 4 being brand new ones. Well, we've already discussed Kobo being a brand new canon planet that will be our home base, but as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any other planets that have been officially named so far, but I am expecting a similar amount to be introduced in line with the first game, and perhaps even more, as Stig, the game director, has emphasized time and time again in interviews that these next-gen consoles have allowed the team to have a much larger development space to play with, resulting in larger maps and worlds to explore. But that said, I do want to bring your attention to this small detail, a very swift clip that we also pick up in the trailer, and it's of this red planet scene, which does resemble the planet of Korriban to me, which I initially recognized and thought it was straight out of the old Knights of Republic game, where in canon it is the original homeworld of the Sith species and a very sacred planet for the Sith Order, housing tombs and large statues in reverence of the Dark Lords of the Sith and containing immense dark side power. It's also the same location Yoda visited in the Clone Wars to learn secrets of manifesting his own consciousness within the Force, of course. And I could be really off-piste here, but it could be really exciting if we manage to visit this planet in a next-gen game setting. Now, remaining on exploration a little while longer, let's go through this new traversal and mount system that will be open to us in this game, because one of the biggest wins for me is the fact that the team are introducing fast travel, which I felt was a big issue in Fallen Order, as there was a lot of time spent running back through the level after you'd finished it just to get back to your ship to then continue with the story, which I'm not going to lie, I did find irritating. But there's no more of that now in Survivor, because Stig said recently in an interview that we will feature both fast travel and rideable creatures to help players get from point A to B and then back to A. Now, these fast travel points, of course, do need to be first discovered by you and I in the game, and then once we have discovered them, we can then fast travel to whatever location we want on that specific planet, which is great news. Now, as for this mounting system, IGN did confirm that we'll first need to tame beasts, which I believe we've already been teased with in this particular clip, and after we've got our creature on board with the Force, we'll be able to charge down enemies using our lightsaber whilst on the back of them. It also looks like we'll be able to glide across the map whilst hanging onto the feet of what looks like to me a Lothbat, which were native to the planet Lothal in the Outer Rim, so perhaps they also reside on Kobo. And a fun fact for you, taming creatures and beasts is not unheard of with users of the Force, with Ezra being able to tame beasts using both the light and dark Force in Star Wars Rebels, so perhaps that's where Respawn got their inspiration for in regard to this game mechanic, but we don't have any further information or confirmation on whether we can summon these creatures whenever we want, but I do reckon that we will be able to if we unlock the correct correct perk in our skill tree, but more on that shortly, because Cal can now slide down walls to reach new platforms with his lightsaber descent move, which is a fantastic animation and opens up a lot of verticality options in different world levels. And if we combine that with a brand new grappling hook, we can reach even further distances across the map, which adds another nice Jedi parkour option into our movement mobility bank. In fact, even though we haven't got footage of it yet, IGN stated that Bode can use his jetpack to help Cal get to different areas of the map, which makes me think that other companions may be able to offer us some unique traversal options specifically to them if we do decide to take them on certain missions, whether it's automatic or if we have to trigger it ourselves when we want to. We're just going to have to wait and see. Now, it wouldn't be a proper sequel to Fallen Order if there wasn't a wide array of puzzles in this game, and there certainly is, but the development team has recognized that not every player wants to spend hours completing these mandatory puzzle rooms in the game to progress the main story, which I do welcome, to be fair. But that's not to say that there won't be puzzles at all, as Jeff Majors, Respawn's design director, did say there will be some encountered on the main path, just not as many as Fallen Order. He also went on to say that for those players who enjoy these puzzle rooms, there will be more of them, and they will also be optional, and they are called meditation chambers. Now, these meditation chambers are ancient zones that have been around for hundreds of years, according to Jeff, where the Jedi of the past used to train in them and test their abilities, which means that we'll have to use our force push and pull powers to progress through each chamber for the reward. In fact, Jeff stated that there will be all types of gameplay mixed into these Jedi meditation chambers, including combat, and once we do complete them, we'll pick up new gear, perks, cosmetic skins, as well as learn new information from Jedis of the past who presumably failed in these challenges by using Cal's ability of psychometry, which allows him to interact with these force echoes and hear the last few thoughts of the people who have unfortunately died. Now, I reckon this could be useful in the story, as we can see that High Republic artifact we discussed earlier being used to open these chambers, which we already know our High Republic Jedi ends up coming into possession of. And I'm also assuming a lot of these Jedi come from the High Republic era, who perhaps could give us some insight on what was going on back then. So lots to think about for sure. Now let's go through all the new combat changes, because the big new addition in Survivor are the lightsaber stances, with Stig stating recently that it was important to give us the players a great arsenal right off the bat, and he's referencing the 3 stances that we'll be able to utilize from the start of the game, that being single blade, double blade, and twin blade, but the catch being you can only choose 2 stances in your loadout to freely switch between in combat, which you can see in the bottom left hand corner of your screen here. And what I would say is, if you've played Ghost of Tsushima before, this mechanic may be familiar to you in terms of switching combat stances to counter certain enemies in combat. The main difference being in Survivor, we're limited to 2 during gameplay and not 4 like in Ghost. But let's go through each one now and break down what each stance will offer us in terms of tactical options whilst we're in combat. The first being the single-bladed stance, which is our all-round jack-of-all-trades offensive and defensive stance. That's a solid choice in every combat scenario. It does offer us medium range and medium output in terms of damage when it comes to fighting enemies. It's also relatively fast when it comes to combo building, and does allow us the option of throwing out our saber for a mid-range attack. I also want to bring your attention to this force meter at the bottom of your screen, which hasn't officially been explained by the team yet in detail, but it has been showcased thoroughly, and I do take this maneuver as some sort of force ultimate power that is specific to your current stance, which you can activate by pressing both joystick buttons on the console, which means when you perform well in combat and generate solid combo points, your force power will regenerate faster, as you can see here, and once this ultimate meter is full, you can activate it and perform a special force move centric to that stance that you have currently activated. And in a single blade stance, that seems to be a powerful force thrusting move which can be charged to do heavy damage to enemies. Now, we have seen this mechanic recently in Hogwarts Legacy, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and even in Ghost of Tsushima when activating the Ghost himself. So think of this move as your kind of ultimate one-shotting move. It's cool to see, it's cool to experience, and the better you perform in combat, the more often you're going to use it. Now let's move on to our double-bladed stance. This is a more crowd control or close quarters tactical option when dealing with a lot of enemies who like to get up nice and close. And because of that, its range is limited, and with its somewhat slower animation time in regard to performing attacks, I think we'd be very vulnerable to enemies that are pretty agile like the BX droids. But that said, I think this would be a great choice for smashing through basic stormtrooper platoons or B1 droids, as the Force Ultimate seems to allow us to force pull ourselves into the middle of the fray for a nice area of effect damage spin, with the additional benefit of a force slow effect to everyone else in the vicinity, which would be an excellent option against rudimentary group enemies, but perhaps a poor choice of a stance for one-on-one boss battles. Now, for our third stance, we will be picking this one up alongside the other two we've just mentioned as soon as the game starts. It's our twin-bladed stance, which was initially planned for Jedi Fallen Order, but as Stig says, they just ran out of time to finish it, so it turned into a cool finishing move in that game instead. But we'll now be able to use this and give it our full attention in Survivor, because Jason DeHarris, the design director, described this stance specifically as a more technical stance than others, but still very approachable. And that's because this stance is designed for us to attack at a faster rate against inbound enemies with a wider selection of combos on offer to us. Additionally, this is the only offensive stance that allows you to dodge or guard cancel at the start of the attack animation comparatively to the other four, because with those other four stances, after you press your attack button, you then have to let the animation run its course before triggering your next attack, which then makes you susceptible to attacks from enemies, just like the Dark Souls games. But to balance out this versatility and high damage output, we will take significantly more damage from NPCs. But either way, this looks really great to me, and I'm keen to run with that high risk, high reward combat option with this particular stance. But let's move on to our final two that we will be able to unlock in game, and that's the crossguard and blaster stances. Now, Jason describes the crossguard as another high risk stance that deals the most damage, but is also the slowest and has the least amount of range out of all of them. He goes on to state further that it is to be considered more like a fighting game stance with an emphasis on mastery. So kind of think of the crossguard mechanic along the same lines as For Honor gameplay, I would say, with Stig describing it himself as a heavy yet measured and purposeful approach to combat. Now, the reason why this stance offers the most risk is because we need to understand the spacing between Cal and the enemy, as when this stance is equipped, the game apparently doesn't artificially push us towards the enemy and proactively into combat. So we'll have to really time our movements and strikes precisely for this Kylo Ren / High Republic saber stance to be effective for us. Now, the final stance that we haven't seen showcased by Respawn yet is the blaster stance, with Stig recognizing that this form is something that really reflects the journey that Cal himself is currently going through, which is unconventional and is usually frowned upon for a Jedi, but because of his current circumstance, he is doing whatever it takes to survive, and this stance is truly a reflection of that. Now, even though a blaster is a very uncivilized weapon, Master Kanan Jarrus did use it as an offensive weapon in tandem with his lightsaber against the Grand Inquisitor, so we have seen something like this before in Star Wars. But Jason was quick to confirm that this is not a shooter game, and the best way to think of this blaster is like a melee gun. So even if you are shooting enemies at long range, the game will then encourage you to move forward and engage with your saber after pinging off a few blaster shots. And I'm excited to see the combo and execution animations with this stance in particular. Now let's go over all the skills and talent systems that will be playing an important role in this game, as Respawn are really demonstrating through this mechanic alone how Cal is consistently improving as a Jedi Knight, because each lightsaber stance we just went through will have its own skill tree, meaning if there's two stances in particular you really enjoy playing with, you'll be able to place your skill points into each tree respectively to generate more power in each one and become a more effective Jedi Knight. Not only that, but force power will also have its own tree to make your force pulls, pushes, time slows, and everything else in between more impactful in and out of combat, as well as a completely separate tree for survival, which will increase your health and, I imagine, taming and mounting capabilities when it comes to controlling animals and beasts we discussed earlier. Now, we'll be able to change our lightsaber stances and upgrade our skills at the meditation points, which are reprised from JFO, but on top of these skill trees, Respawn are also adding a new perk system into Survivor, with Jeff Majors, the Respawn design director, stating in a recent interview that perks are are abilities that you can slot into this perk system to change and customize gameplay, but they are mainly for combat. And even though we haven't been given much more info than that at this particular stage, but we can see Cal here looting a dexterity perk in a Jedi chamber, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game follows a similar path to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you're able to add these perks into your armor sets that then change up combat depending upon your own preferred playstyle. So perhaps this dexterity perk allows Cal to climb and traverse objects faster when it's equipped in the menus, or become more mobile in combat against enemies. Now, when it comes to customization, I was very happy to hear that Respawn have made big improvements in Survivor comparatively to Fallen Order. In fact, at 37 minutes in at a recent IGN interview, Stig jokingly said that once Fallen Order had nearly finished development, the team then realized that they didn't actually have any rewards to give the players in the game, and that's how Ponchos were introduced. But as I said, that's changing in Survivor because it will have a deep cosmetic system in terms of gear Cal can wear, which we can see in a recent official EA Instagram post to all be changing from jacket to trousers to t-shirts and undergarments. It all seems like we'll have control over every item choice in our loadout, with Jeff Majors, the design director, noting that in this game we as the players will have tangible rewards if we decide to do side content and exploration. And I'm assuming those tangible rewards won't just be new bomber jackets from Chess, but also skins for BD1, as well as metal resources to upgrade our blaster, BD1 himself of course, and new lightsaber components to really take our own saber to the customizable next level back at our workbench. Now, on top of that, we'll also be able to change up Cal's hairstyle, and if there is a chance to let him grow out his beard to Qui-Gon's level, then sign me up, because that will most certainly be happening during my playthrough. Now, if you are watching to this point in the video, I just want to say thank you. This video itself took such a long time to make, so I hope it's been an informative and enjoyable watch. And if you haven't done so already, do consider subscribing. I'm going to be covering the game in detail from start to finish, so it'd be great to have you along for this ride. In fact, speaking of which, check out this other Star Wars video on your screen right now, and I'll see you there in just a second. If you're still here though, my big thanks to my co-content creator Nika, who has helped me create this video for you, as well as Voynich, Dennis, and James for their huge contributions. Coffee is on all of them, and I'll see you in that next video.